What's going on? This is Corin with the Rebuilding Us podcast. And listen, man, we all saw the Oscars. It was tragic. Everybody saw what happened. Everybody has a reaction to it. And I delayed my reaction because I wasn't going to give one. Simple as that. I had my own set of beliefs and value system. And because of that, that set of values and that set of beliefs, I was not going to comment on this issue. And then I started to review Facebook and different sites and just tune in to see how they fared on either side of the argument. And what's interesting is because I didn't think that there was much conversation that needed to be had. I thought that it was clear cut on what actually transpired. But what I'm finding out is that people align on one side of the argument over the other. And what happened to the basics of right and wrong. And that's what I want to discuss right now. But I'm going to be bringing in a family member of mine, and we're going to have that discussion about what happened, what his thoughts is on it, and mine as well. And then we'll go from there.
What up, Coco?
All right. So I pretty much state that I kind of delayed having my reaction, public reaction, because I wasn't going to get into it. I thought it was petty. And actually, I thought it was pretty clear cut in terms of right and wrong. And, so I had my opinion and I reserved that to myself. And, you and I had this conversation offline about it. But I really thought it was clear cut. As a matter of fact, I actually thought it was a setup. I didn't think this was real at all. The slap didn't look real. As I'm studying film, it didn't look real. It just looked staged. I recognized that the Oscars were having a hard time, especially in the black community, with people tuning in and watching. And this was just a few years ago, where we, all of these black actresses and actors were boycotting the Oscars. This was the thing. We weren't fairly represented. That was the argument. So this was all, to me, upstaged to increase their viewership. And obviously it did that. But now, as I'm hearing more and more talk, I'm not completely eliminating the fact that it's all staged, but it's a possibility that it isn't. It's a strong possibility that it isn't. So, with that being said, what was your initial reaction?
I don't believe that it was staged at all. But you never know in Hollywood. You don't know what they up to. You don't know what people's motives are. So. But I didn't feel my initial reaction was, no, this is real. This is the real deal. And I was confused by it because I'm sitting there listening to it, and the joke that he told about, G.I. Jane Part 2 didn't seem that bad of a joke to me. And not knowing Jada's condition, it didn't seem that bad. And even when I learned that she had, the condition, it still didn't seem bad to me at all. But, in the moment, she felt some type of way. You can instantly see it on her face that she felt like it was distasteful. And you can see Will laugh initially at the joke. He thought it was funny. And then the things just changed. And what happened so quick, it was like, wow. And so, after having a couple of days to process it and hear other people's opinions and all, it was still kind of like, yeah, you don't do that. You don't react, as far as Will is concerned. You don't react in that manner. It's like, it's never okay, to put your hands on somebody else over words. I mean, we tell our kids these things. We tell each other these things. We got this woke culture right now, and we want to be, black love, and we need to lift each other up and all this other stuff going on. So it's kind of like, I mean, you can't have that attitude, but then react in a manner or promote or agree with something like that happens. You know what I mean? So I can't agree with it. I don't think it warranted that response. I mean, I think there was other ways to handle it if he felt like, Chris was disrespectful to his wife, purposely. He could have handled it totally different. So that's my opinion. I know other people, I think we talked about it earlier offline that a lot of people, I guess the country is divided on who's right and, it wasn't justified and all this other stuff. I don't ever think that that's appropriate, right? Not over words. Like, comedians been roasting people, since I've been alive. I've seen plenty of, I've seen worse than that. And whether it's been in person or on television or whatever, I've seen worse. And so, yeah, I just think that it was his response was inappropriate. It was uncalled for. He took it way too far. And it's a shame that, like I said, we tell each other all the time. We, especially with this woke culture we have, that we should be lifting each other up, that we should, we should support each other. We should, carry ourselves, in a better way, in a better light. And then on a night where we supposed to have been celebrating, having the Academy stage finally after years of protest and complaint of not being included, this happened. And it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like set anybody that's in that world professionally, it probably set them back. And then as a whole, it's kind of like the way the culture is responding to it. Maybe we need to, ask ourselves, are we really for each other? Because
that's a good point.
if we can get upset with comedians for being funny or trying to be funny, and like I said, I don't think it was no malintention in what he was saying. And then you assume that he knew of her condition. If you think he was malintention, he had to know of her, condition ahead of time. And I don't think that was the case. And so for him to have that type of response and do that, it was kind of like way overboard. And it was uncalled for. These are, I know we like to look up to entertainers and things of that nature. And I know that they're human too. They make mistakes, but I just don't get it. I mean, we have to figure out a way, what side of the fence we're going to be on. Like, what I'm saying? When do we be woke? Is it dependent on if it's somebody we like that does it? And we can be like, oh, yeah, I can agree with him. I know where he was defending his wife's honor. This, that's the third. Because I like Will Smith and I don't too much rock with, Chris Rock. Okay. You could justify it that way. But then that's really not a justification because right is right and wrong is wrong. Right, go ahead.
That's what I'm seeing. I started to scour, the different social media platforms. And again, I'm also seeing this kind of division on either side of the fence. Some who have either suggested that, hey, look, I had to unfriend people because they don't agree with your position. Like, I could never, I was just telling him, Aaron offline again that, you got to be careful. And this is why I don't get into a lot of politics or go back and forth on social media, because once you find out how people really think, you start questioning whether or not you want to be friends or associated with them. And, and the reality is that you have to stand for something or you'll fall for everything. And I think, for me, my position is clear. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Do I agree that a man should defend his wife? Absolutely. Now the question is how do you defend her? How do you defend her honor? And I do not think violence in that situation with Tom Ford suits on and $1 million watches was the appropriate occasion or time to be physically violent with another superstar. Because you have to make a lot of assumptions in order to arrive at your conclusion. You have to assume that he did it out of malice. He knew she had a medical condition. And even if he did, we can agree that he's wrong if he knew that he did, but it was a joke. This is what comedians do. And so the response still wouldn't have been warranted because you got to look at the nature of the joke. Like, is this the most egregious thing that you could say to somebody? You know, making a G.I. Jane reference? You know, and I just don't think that it was. But regardless of what side of the fence you're on that, whether the joke was appropriate or not, the fact of the matter is what I would hope that we all should be able to agree on, especially for black people in that platform at this time in our lives and this time in history, that using physical violence in that situation is not warranted under any circumstances based on this situation. And so I'm not even going to get into all this old entanglement stuff and everything else that is going on in their personal life. I just know that their life is on display. And so there is no joke that is off limits, you know, and from that realm, right? We talk about Dave Chappelle. I think we agree that he is one of the greats. And so there's nothing that's off limits. You know, Netflix, luckily the CEO said, look, I'm not going to cancel Dave Chappelle because the transgender community and those who work there was threatening to quit and all this other stuff. And like, I'm not going to cancel him because you don't like his jokes. So could you now you set the precedence so every comedian who makes a joke that the audience don't like, and that goes back to what you were saying. Is it because you like Will Smith and you don't like Chris Rock as much? Or is it because you really believe that the joke was egregious? Because otherwise, if it's just a matter of personally offending somebody, well, Dave Chappelle has offended a lot of people. Martin has offended a lot of people. Chris Rock has. Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, all these people have offended a lot of people in the audience. And we would never condone an audience member going up and assaulting them. And then where do you stop at? That was a slap. So then can we justify it and say, well, you talked about his wife and that's why he shot him? So that's a very dangerous precedence that we're setting here to suggest under any circumstances that, and especially this one, that it is okay to use violence. I think that Will Smith should have pulled him offline, man to man, and had that conversation. And he still would have defended his honor, as far as I'm concerned. Or is it really about the optics of it and how the world looks at it? But again, I just don't think the joke was as egregious enough that the world somehow, first of all, let's be honest. Me personally, I don't think Jada looks bad. You know, I had this conversation with you earlier. You know, not my type, but I'm saying I don't think that I think she's a beautiful woman. And so even with the low haircut, right, whether it was alopecia, which I didn't know because I don't watch her show, or if it was because she cut it. And I thought she just cut it. And I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't look bad. Right. I like it. It's cool. And that's just, right. I left it at that. So everybody did not know she had a medical condition.
Right, so, exactly.
You know, we assuming that he did, and you know, again, you got to make a lot of assumptions without knowing.
But I think it came out that he didn't know. But like I said, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, it's not that the reaction that Will gave was not appropriate under any circumstances. Like I said, it was, you know, and then Chris Rock was, you know, he kind of quickly got off of that. Right, and he was moving on to his next, you know, dialogue. You know, the next dialogue, and he was like, you know, Will just got off, you know, got out of his seat and came up, and it happened so quick, right? So it was kind of like he was moving on. So it wasn't something, like I said, I don't think it was something he was doing in malice, and he was trying to, you know, harm her in any kind of way. It was just a joke. And then right before they showed, I think the clip showed that he had actually. There was another couple in the audience, and he had said something about them, made a joke with them, and I guess he was just going around the room or whatever. But it wasn't like he was picking on them.
Right. So we only know of one joke. We only know of one joke.
That's what I'm saying. He did one thing, right? I'm saying. So they showed the clip that I saw. They showed when it came on, he had talked about this one couple, made a joke about them, and then he went to Will and Jada or whatever, went to Jada. And then he was trying to move on through his dialogue and I guess, do the presentation or whatever. But so I don't think he was harping on it. I just think the whole thing was like Like it was an overreaction.